We are back. Tyler, how are you?
I'm good. I'm back. Took the week off. Heard you did great with Dan. Lots
Yeah,
of followers, lots of good conversation.
sure. Yeah, let's say that. You sound really good though. Did you get some upgrades in your life?
Yeah, I heard all the comments. Got a microphone. Let's see how it works. Let me know if this
Okay,
sounds better.
sounds good. Well, we're not going to do sales recaps because you know what? It's kind of boring.
I got something different for us today. We're always talking every week about, oh, this sold for that, and is that
Yeah,
too much? Is that not enough? It kind of all goes down to our perspective on, are these cards worth the price? Are they underrated, or are they not worth the price? Are they overrated? So I thought we could play a little game today. It's a little underrated, overrated. I got a few categories here. So if you're ready, I'll
can
start
I
us off.
just a question real quick? Can I go like it's good, it's not under or overrated? Is that okay? Or is
If you
that
have to, if you
okay?
have to, do it. We'll try to stick to underrated,
And
overrated.
to be clear, is this under overrating in terms of what the value is, or is it
In
just
general, do you think
people?
these are worth the hype, the value,
Got it.
anything? So it could be value, not necessarily value. Like, are these cooler than other people think, or not as cool as other
Got
people
it.
think?
Okay, let's do
Okay,
it.
so I'm going to start off easy one for us. I think we're in agreement. Let's see. PSA 10s in general, underrated or overrated?
Oh man, you know I love PSA 10s. It's like all I talk about.
I don't think you've ever had a PSA 10.
I've had maybe one or two PSA 10s here or there. I don't cover them at all in any of my stories and my recaps. I don't even know much about what the prices are, except that they're insane. So obviously for me, massively overrated because it's a subjective opinion, like we've talked about before. You're paying for, 7, 10 times as much
Right.
as an 8 or a 9 for just the number grade, which seems pretty cool, I guess, but not for that much more money. So I definitely think overrated.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I'm going to say overrated. And the reason is, especially with like ultra modern cards, we're talking 90s, we're talking Jordans, but with a lot of cards, you can't even tell the difference just by looking at it. Like a lot of people send in cards that they think are 10s and they end up getting 9s. That happens every single day. So the difference in condition is like really, really slight. And yet, like you said, you get 2x, 5x, 10x, 20x for a PSA 10. If PSA 10s were like 20% higher than a 9, I'd be like, okay, maybe I'll go for the 10. But the numbers we're seeing, it's certainly not worth it for my collection.
Even if it was 2 or 3x, it would kind of make sense, right? Like a 9 versus an 8 for PSA, I think is anywhere from 1.5 to 3x, depending on the card.
Yeah.
But then a 9 to a 10 can be anywhere from 5 to 10x, like we talked about, depending on some of these inserts. And so, I guess the only way it's properly rated is when your collection is all PSA 10s, or that's what you chase, or that's what you love. You need those perfect scores. Then it is what it is. It's not under or over. That's what you go for.
Yeah, and for me, I'd rather get 5 times the size of the collection of PSA 9 or 10 times the PSA 8, which is why most of my collection is 8s. But yeah, like you said, it's up to each person.
It's
Okay,
too
next,
easy.
acetate cards.
Oh, I love a good acetate card. That's so. First of all, a distinction is acetate. Does that just mean transparent, or is it actually like a different plastic material? Do you know the answer to that?
I think the material is acetate, that's like a kind of plastic, but
Yeah,
really I don't, I'm just kind of talking about like
you're talking
see-through
about
clear
clear.
plastic cards. Yeah.
I love them. You can see one here. The credentials, one of my favorite, or probably my favorite base card of all time. I think acetates are underrated. I think there's some that do extremely well, like the credentials here, like Dunkin' Go Nuts. That's Jam right now is super popular. Not an MJ card, but a set. But overall, I don't think that people are like, oh my goodness, acetate, I love it. And I think it's really cool. You don't like it though.
Well, I am going to say overrated. Please don't blast me in the
Mm.
comments. The reason I think it's overrated is because they yellow. Like everybody knows the Dunkin' Donuts, how many of them are clear versus yellow? If they stayed crystal clear all the time, I would think they're properly to underrated. But because they don't, and the yellowing is just a huge factor for me. Like the same as if we have Chrome cards, I'd say, well, Chrome is cool, but because 90% of them green, then no, I'm going to say no, they're not underrated. So if acetate didn't yellow, I would think differently, but in the way that they are, I'm going to say overrated.
Fair enough. I mean, when it comes to chrome cards, by the way, I'd probably say they are overrated because it's the exact same card just with a chrome finish.
Yeah.
But regardless, going to acetate, I should clarify. In general, I think it's underrated because there are so many cool acetates out there. But I'm with you. If it is yellow or brown or something that is not the right color or hulked, I'm out. I don't like it at all. I do like when we have a very crystal clear, nice looking acetate.
Right.
Titanium comes to mind, almost always very clear, even though sometimes it does fade for
That's
the
true.
J. Total O 1996 comes to mind, which is, I feel like it's always pretty clear. But then you go to like Hot List 96, I think, that one
Right.
turns yellow.
Dunkin' go nuts. Like those are
Obviously,
always yellow. Now, when you talk about the credentials above you, I don't think that's technically acetate. Now, we had established at the beginning of this that we're just talking about see-through cards. So I do really like that card, but I think that's why that one doesn't yellow. So really it's the yellow for me that gets it. And then you got cards like Star Power Supreme,
yeah.
which to me is among my least favorite cards of all time. That's a card that's supposed to be yellow, and yet people love that one, but hate when other cards that are supposed to be clear are yellow. Like yellow acetate for me, absolutely not.
I've had several copies of that card. I've had a raw that I graded as a BGS 8.5, and then I've had, I think, a BGS 8.5 and a BGS 8, and they've all just been different colors. I don't know what the right color is for Star Power Supreme. I think mine were like fairly yellow. I've seen them where they get a little greenish. For me, the bigger issue there is when Jordan starts to become different colors and when the
Yeah,
foil on that card starts chipping. But overall, I just feel like every one I've seen is this pukey yellow color,
yeah.
which just sucks. It's just ugly.
And the transparency goes both ways. With that EX credentials above you, it looks cool on a desk. It looks cool if you hold it up to a window. There's
Yes.
nothing behind it. On the Star Power Supreme, there's an actual image on the back that you can see through. It's terrible. Like that card, if that card's not on the list, but that is overrated.
Yeah, maybe acetates are overrated. All right, let's keep going.
All right, next one. It was while we're talking about the makeup of cards and how they're made. Foil cards. A lot of like think Skybox 95, 96, Ultra, those kind of cards. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think of metal is kind of the main foil card.
Metal, of course.
Yeah, so you have molten metal and maximum metal behind you there. Meltdown, obviously. Power in the key.
Triple threats,
I
strong
guess.
scoring kings.
Yeah, I guess my question here is like, how are foil cards rated? Because I don't really know. Are they rated really highly? Do people love them?
I don't know, but I'll spill the beans and say I think they're underrated. No
Oh,
matter how they're rated, I think it's underrated. They're among my favorite cards.
okay.
A good percentage of my collection is foil cards, like 20, 30, 40%. I think they look really cool. Now they do get damaged. You could use my logic from last time against me and say, well, acetate's cool except when it yellows. You could say, well, foil's cool except when it chips.
Yep.
And that's true, though I really like the foil. I don't love the chipping, of course, but I think they look cool. I like Skybox. I like that mid-decade insert set. I really like them.
Um, Tell me a little bit about what you know about production or like.
I know zero about production.
Oh, okay, so we shouldn't get into this. But I guess what I'm not clear in is like foil to me doesn't seem that special, whereas the acetate or something else seems like it's like more unique and something had to be done to make it look so cool. Same with like a hologram or a die cut. Foil
Yeah,
just.
to your point, it's a totally different material. Acetate's a totally different material than what was used for 100 years before, whereas foil's just probably a layer on top. Um, so yeah, I'll give you that argument, but I just think they look cool.
I'll go overrated, and my main reason for not liking foil cards is that it kind of distorts the image and the shine of the card, and it often just doesn't look good in pictures or in scans. Sometimes you can get a good shot at it.
That's
I
true. The
take
scans, yeah,
pictures in
that's
different
true.
sunlight so I can get a good view of the card, but. It just bugs me when I see a card that is cool, like a 96 molten metal. It's cool in person.
Yeah,
Looks awful in almost every single scan you can
that's
find.
true. I wonder if that's is that slightly embossed? I feel like the player is at least a different Maybe it's not embossed, but a different kind of sheen
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I
going on.
mean, most of the time when you have the foil, that's the background, so the player's not going to be in foil. I don't know the reason, but I'm going overrated on foil.
All right. Three down, next one. How about card photography in general? For all the things that you could like about a card, the value, the production, the actual photo, how much does that play in to how you like a card? Underrated, overrated?
Personally, I feel like it's underrated because I like good photography. I love when there's a great action shot. I love when MJ is dunking or driving or shooting a layup versus we've talked before, just like standing around or shooting a jumper. It's just not that special for me. But I don't think that I really. I don't think that that's the number one thing for me. I like the design of the card more, which includes the background. So
Right.
that sometimes if the photography of the player is not that special, the background and the overall look of the card can kind of overcome it.
Yeah, I agree. I also think underrated. And to me, the look of the card, like you said, which includes the photography, photography is a main component of the look, is number one for me. And then if I'm going to like the card, photography plays a huge role. Like I'm looking at the linchpins over your shoulder, which I think is one of the coolest cards ever. And if you look at any vintage basketball, vintage anything really, before they had like in-game action shots, the pictures are absolutely terrible. I mean, they're literally like hanging out before the game, and a photographer just goes, "Hey, look over here, come here," and everything just looks terrible about it. So if you're a vintage collector, the vintage cards are really cool. The '50s ones have like drawings, so they can do them doing anything. But anything in the '70s or '80s are just like headshots. They're no good at all. So like once they started getting in-game photos, like we're seeing in our backgrounds, they became much nicer.
One thing about photography on Jordan cards in particular, though, that kind of bugs me is that I feel like a lot of the inserts don't have the best pictures of MJ, whereas quite a few of like the base cards will have some awesome photos. Thinking of like early years Upper Deck
Yeah,
91, 92,
'92 upper deck, '93 upper deck. Yeah,
some of the Skybox years, even like Ultra in 95 and 96, I feel like those are pretty cool base card photos. And I wish that some of the inserts had better ones. And we've talked about this again before, but like the ones at the top here, high voltage or fusion, like we just got MJ shooting a jumper. There were so many different options. I know you kind of like some of these, but they're
yeah,
just
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah, the backgrounds make up for it in these inserts, but yeah, they could be slightly better.
could be so much better. All right, let's do another one.
All right, one more on how the card looks and when what it's made of. Die cuts.
Oh
What
man,
do you,
you know what? You know I love die cuts. So you're out. Yeah, this is definitely under for you or over for you.
well, I mean, I wouldn't say definitely. It's not like I hate die cuts. I am gonna say overrated, and I can explain it unless you want to go off on your fandom for
Explain
die
it.
cuts, which I
Explain
know
it.
you love. All right, so die cuts. I love the innovation. I like when card companies do something different. Love that. I love that they're not all so like obviously you got the rectangle. It's not like all the die cuts are circle or a half circle or something like that. So they do get really unique with the die cuts. Just from like a kind of a logistical perspective, looking back at it, die cuts are an absolute nightmare to put in top loaders. They often have like tons of corners. Look at the triumvirate behind you. I recently tried to put that into a top loader, and it was absolutely awful because you catch it on every single one going in. Die cuts and PSA slabs, at least, probably not BGS slabs, but I'm not an expert. They slide around. They use kind of a different insert or something, and they're often like cockeyed or something like that, which is not the fault of the die cut. I get it, but when I'm just thinking about die cuts, I'm like, oh, trying to put them in a top loader is no fun. Looking at them in a slab is not great. I love the innovation, and they often have cool shapes and things like that, but they're not my favorite for that reason.
Fair points, and I completely agree with you with the PSA slabs. That's one of the big reasons why I don't go for them. I hate when
Right.
that is going to move around there. I've had like die cuts that kind of get like stuck towards the top edges or like side edges too, so that can happen. In terms of getting a sleeve, man, you gotta get better at this, dude. Like,
I mean, I dare you to try and find that to get that triumvirate in the sleeve right now.
uh, the
Make it
card
12
right
corner.
here. this BGS 9 luminescent, I graded myself, so I did get into in and out of the sleeve a couple times. Definitely is a tricky proposition, especially with multiple corners. I don't know what it is about die cuts. I just love them. I love that they look very unique. But I don't love all die cuts. I really dislike when there's a die cut that has either no purpose or just isn't that special. The one that comes to mind that I've railed on before is Netrageous. I just don't really think it's
Right.
that great of a die cut. There are a couple others that maybe just aren't as special, but other ones like Hot Shots, Cut Above, like Net Assets, Triumvirate, where you really get these exciting, like unique designs that either fit the theme, like the Net in Net Assets, or the Flame in Hot Shots,
Right.
or the Triumvirate where you're connecting things together.
Yeah.
I like that kind of innovation where it fits the theme.
I agree. I do not dislike those. I think that is innovative. I think if you interviewed me in 1996 or 1997, I'd be like, yeah, these are really cool, great designs. What about like internal die cuts, like linchpins and things where the card is still a rectangle, but you still get some die cut, or even net assets, which of course is die cut on the outside, but also on the inside. I think those are pretty cool because that would still be it's still gonna fit in a slab. It's still gonna be easy to get in a top loader, but you still get that. Even something like Natural Born Thrillers, where you can tell it's kind of layered. The first one was had the rectangle cut out, and then they put it, almost like a jersey card. I think those are nice.
Love it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fusion here, the Platinum Portraits, the little pinholes, late it's like I guess like laser
Right.
etching or something. But yeah, love all those, man. I think you like die cuts. I think I
Yeah.
don't.
There's things about die cuts I don't like,
Yeah.
but I definitely don't dislike them. I have a few in my collection, as you can see. Okay, we've talked about how cards look, how
Yeah.
they're made. How about rarity? What do you think of pack odds? Specifically pack odds, not all
Okay.
rarity, but just specifically it's 1 in 2880 series 1 hobby. Should we factor that in more? Should we factor that in less? What do you think?
I don't really know again like what other people think and how much it's factored in. Um, and so for me, I think it's extremely important. I care a lot about that because it matters to me that a card was extremely hard to get from packs. Specific packs, we talked about this before, like retail versus hobby, how
Yeah.
much the pack was, like all that stuff is important. And so the pack odds to me doesn't really get talked about that much, even though I personally am all about it. So I don't know the answer for what that means. I guess that means I think they're underrated.
Yeah, I'm kind of I'm gonna say properly rated for the first time. I'm gonna push, and there's a reason for that. In some aspects, I think it's underrated, and in some aspects, I think it's overrated. So I think determining the rarity of a card is very important and potentially underrated, although most people factor that in. Knowing how many are made, so print runs and availability, which we talked about before, those sort of things are really important. Pack odds specifically, however, which is what 95% of when we talk about rarity we refer to, I think that is a very flawed metric. Even if you know the pack odds, which maybe you don't, if you don't, go to jordanvault.com, you can see a whole bunch of pack odds, but it, you don't know how many packs were produced for one. You can't really compare across manufacturers, across years. Even like my example, 1 in 2080 Series 1 hobby in 95 metal is going to be different than 98 Fleer Ultra.
Yeah.
So I think we might be using a broad brush and just saying like, oh, this one is more rare than this one, just by looking at pack odds. It really can't be done. So again, we talked about people who are trying to get a little bit more precise with that, with either print runs or availability, which is great. So determining rarity is important, but pack odds specifically is flawed. So I'm going to put on this one.
I think there's kind of like two different things that people are talking about here, right? Like one is the actual difficulty of getting the card when it was released or
Mm-hmm.
available, which is more like for myself, I'm thinking about it right, like as if I was in the 90s and
Yeah.
trying to get this Slam Cam Michael Jordan that's one in 2400 or whatever. Like impossible for me to get. I don't care how many were produced. I wasn't gonna buy 24.
Right.
So I think like that is the way that I'm probably thinking of it and thinking like, oh, it's so rare because it was hard to get. Versus I think what we are getting to now is this rarity more like what the production run is because now we can see like here are all of them out there. We know that there were 1,200 of these slam cams, and so those pack odds, or I mean, estimated 1,200. So maybe the pack odds don't matter as much. Maybe they matter more. But like we're looking at it overall now that most, or not all, but most of those slam cams are out there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When these were produced, you didn't have the opportunity to buy singles like you have now.
Yeah.
Like when these were produced, you really didn't have the internet, or maybe you were barely on the internet. You had some card shows or card shops, but I mean, most of the sales of cards right now is on the internet. So yeah, that's a good point.
Let's do one more.
All right. How about, what do you think of Wizards cards? So we're all the cards in our backgrounds are on the Bulls. What do you think about him on the Wizards? I'll say Wizards cards because that distinction may come into my answer.
Wait, say that again. What's the last thing?
The Wizards cards, not necessarily Jordan on the Wizards. How you feel about that, but just the Wizards cards.
So sometimes I see like people making a fuss about how Wizards cards are playing years cards, and he was playing, and that's important. Important. When people tell me that something is important, if I don't care that it's important or I don't agree, I don't really care that that's a playing years card. It's a different jersey. It's a different MJ. Basically, he's a different player at that point. It's 3 years after the titles, and I don't really know how they're rated. I guess they're not rated very highly right now. So those folks may say that they are underrated. I kind of feel like it's probably properly rated at this point. Personally, the Wizards cards don't do it for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. They are playing years cards, and maybe you don't care about that. Like, I think when people talk about playing years, they really mean Bulls years, even though they say playing years. Um, they're probably properly rated. I'll go ahead and say underrated. I think the cards themselves are really nice. Like I'm looking at some of like the 2001 SPs. You just got a really clean white background, really great photography. I feel like card manufacturers had really figured it out by then. Maybe not quite as many inserts, although the 2001 Beam Team is great. The cards themselves, I think, are really nice. I don't have any Wizards cards. I've had them, and they don't really fit my collection. But there's some really nice cards. Even though I agree with you, I don't really consider the Wizards years. Like I don't think of that when I think about the oeuvre of Jordan.
And I should be clear. Yeah, there are. I have seen accounts that specifically say this is Wizards cards are playing years, and that matters. The last ones, there's only so many that are Bulls, Wizards, or Bulls autos, for example, from those playing years. So like a Wizards auto is significant, and again, doesn't matter to me. But you do have a good point. Like a lot of the cards in 01, 02 are just better quality. Like the chrome set, they figured it out. There's no greening. I think of mostly refractors in those years. I think like most of the cool skybox inserts that were in the late 90s, like we don't have those in 2001 and 2. And so the main ones that you really get to at that point are going to be tops and upper deck. So you think of like even the refractors of Zone Busters or Coast to Coast. The Beam Team, like you mentioned, is not a refractor, but refracts, and it's just incredible color. Some great looking cards for sure. But personally, just not for me.
And I would guess that 98% of him in a Wizards jersey was while he was playing with the Wizards. Like, I don't think there's a ton of 2007 Wizards cards because they'll just make a Bulls card. So you can be pretty sure that if you see a Wizards card, it is playing days if you consider that playing days and care about that sort of thing. Whereas you might see, like now appearing 2009, it's like, oh, I didn't even realize that was a non-playing days card, and maybe you don't want it because of that.
All right. Well, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. Great disagreeing with you, and we'll pick this up next week.